Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Interviews with Entrepreneurs in South Africa. Today, I'm very excited to be introducing you to one of my very dear friends, Angie Weisswange. And Angie is an author and a craft teacher. Angie, please will you tell us a little bit more about what you do and why you do it?
Wow. Thanks so much for this opportunity, Mel. It's lovely to see you. And yeah, this is a wonderful medium to be able to share what we do and why we do it. For me, I suppose it's a lifelong thing, wanting to educate and just explore and try things out. I've always had that kind of, if someone else has done it, well, then maybe I can try it too. Well, in one sphere, in the art sphere, it's limited to that. When it comes to dancing and tennis, I'm hopeless. But if it's something like making something with your hands, then that's me. My dad brought me up to think that if someone else can make it with their hands, maybe you can as well. And I suppose it's just a way of life. And Monique and I, who wrote, Monique is my co-author, we grew up so similarly. We met in utero. Our mothers were in the church choir together and wound up in hospital together, having us 1 week apart exactly. Monique was the first Thursday and I was the second Thursday. And so when we reach 100, I think we will have probably the record for the longest friendship, partnership, and authorship combined. And I think we've always egged each other on to try new things, explore, and always have, both of us, we've had a passion to share our knowledge and just put it out there and see what people come back with. I think that's the fascinating thing, is empowering and enabling others.
That's wonderful. And how many books have the two of you put together? Because I have an idea, but for people watching, they may not know how accomplished you are.
Well, Monique and I wrote 10 together, and then I did one on my own, and then Monique's gone on to do, she's done a whole series on her own. She's done 2 full-on how-to books and then a series of coloring in books, I think 8 of them, beautiful books. And so she's also collaborated with other authors, where I've gone on to do a different type of writing. Last year for the Department of Education, my husband heads up the Science Development Unit at the university here. So they were asked to do the life science curriculum for grade 11 and 12, to do free media for schools to access. And so I got to write a chapter of that, which is another passion of mine, on human impacts on the environment. And also I got to do all the digital illustrations for the life science for grade 11 and 12, which I really loved, because it's something that I started getting into towards the end of the books. But the books started because both of us, I think, as teenagers, were very into fabrics and textiles, as young girls are. And Monique went on to do her qualifications in textile design. I just became a teacher, and then didn't enjoy teaching teenagers. It's high school and all that went with high school. So I got into craft teaching, and then we both were in different places in South Africa and discovered we were both teaching fabric painting and dyeing and printing, because that was always our base. And so we started sharing notes, and then PE Arts and Crafts, I was teaching for them. They suggested that we put together a book proposal for a publishing house that then turned us down. So we were very disappointed, but we'd done all the work. So we thought, well, why not? We put out our own little photocopy books. And they did jolly well for about 4 or 5 years. And then Monique took the bull by the horns. She met Wilsia Metz at a breakfast in Cape Town and went up with all her courage and said, we actually have something that you might enjoy looking at and possibly publishing. And Wilsia was delighted. She jumped in and said, wow, you've done half the work already. This is great. So started a wonderful friendship. And what a fantastic publishing house. They've supported us so well over the years. And each book, then Wilsia would say, well, what are you going to come up with next? And at the time, I was working in a garden centre, and I said, well, I've been doing a lot of this poured painting long before poured painting became a thing. I was cleaning paintbrushes basically, and discovering that, I couldn't bear to let all this color just be wasted away. So I started dribbling it over supports, and so was born the next book, Quick Art, and Monique was experimenting on paper, so we went with paint on paper, and it just grew and developed, and then we went into mixed media, and we did Simply Fabulous Fabric, and eventually outside art, again because of working for a garden center, being inspired by, what people could do with cement and rubbish, literally. And yeah, so it's kind of always been a journey of discovery.
So upcycling's always been a big part of your narrative.
Absolutely. Yeah, my dad started me on that when I was 4 years old. He created this massive train set, which he used to lower from the roof of the garage. And he had me breaking up egg boxes and newspapers to, make paper mache. And then I can see myself now with a toothpaste cap. In those days, toothpaste tubes were metal, and cutting up the metal and making little implements with that for the train station, and the little cap to make a little fire bucket, and smashing up coal and putting it in with glue. So from a tiny little girl, I've learned to recycle. And my first ever art material was sitting outside of the braai and moaning because I was bored, and my dad gave me a piece of charcoal from the braai, and there was this area of cement, and he said, draw that tree over there on the cement. So I've learned that you use what you have where you are.
Yes.
So,
and I bet you are never ever bored.
No, and I can't ever throw anything away either. I'm a terrible hoarder. I'm an absolute clutterbug, as you can see. My house, I actually don't have a blank wall to sit against, unfortunately.
No, I'm loving what's behind you. I'm fascinated. All of that stuff behind you, is that stuff that you've made yourself?
No, not everything. Well, there's the books. Okay, there are the books. With the foreign editions, we have 4 foreign editions. Well, I have 4 foreign editions. I'm not sure how many Monique has, but very proud to have a Czech book in Czech, literally, and in Russian. Fascinating to see your name in the script.
Yes.
And German, and then an American edition. So yeah,
that's amazing. Great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And this is a kaleidoscope that I made for one of the books, and this aloe. I've been making fabric aloes, trying to sort of showcase shweshwe, because not a lot of people know that it's actually the most genuine Eastern Cape export that we have, because the only factory in the world that makes true shweshwe is based in Zwelitsha outside King Williamstown. Okay. And they start off the day before our wedding in 2017. I was invited by the people at the Ghana to have a little tour of the factory, which was, a real bonus, because they don't actually allow people in the Namibia because of, trade secrets. But they allowed us to actually go and witness the process from these cones of cotton, spun cotton, being made into fabric, and then going through the whole printing process and coming out the other side as shweshwe. And it's just fantastic. And unfortunately, Prophet is never recognized in his own country, and people in South Africa do not celebrate this incredible fabric. And I've been on a mission since then to try and make it even more special. So for the 2017 Quilters Festival, National Quilt Festival, I was the creative director for that. And so I developed this enormous aloe, not this one, but a giant one, which is 2.7 meters high and has over 100 different shweshwe patterns in it. And so then the whole thing about aloe started then, and now I've condensed it down to a mini aloe, teaching how to create a mini aloe out of shweshwe. And that I taught at some festivals, and then doing sort of fabric art. Here's a approach here. Again, recycled. The middle bit is an old book. We have a second-hand bookstore up the road, and he gets so many books. He says that, missing covers or whatever, and he throws them in the bin. I can't bear it. So I go and raid his bin, and I make beads out of the book pages, and I hand them out to, NGOs that I work for, so that there are materials.
Yes.
The Nelson Mandela Art Gallery has a fantastic teacher, and she has lots of school kids coming through. Well, obviously now COVID's interrupted that. But she takes any materials like that, and they teach the kids so that the kids are empowered again, because a lot of township kids struggle with having access to material. So to show them that you can use broken books, you can use newspapers, sweetie wrappers, whatever, to make something, it's just, it's training people to have a mindset that you don't just throw things away, you look at something twice and think, how can I use this in a different and innovative way to inspire others and possibly self.
I love that. So what are you doing now during COVID-19? A lot of people, particularly teachers, have been.
Yeah, I've normally been a very creative person where, the ideas just sort of get muddled and jumbled because I can't get them out fast enough. And COVID almost flicked a switch and said off. And I found that very difficult. And I think it's because I'm so aware of the fact that so many people are really struggling. So I started off by making masks, of course, and then giving masks out to people who needed masks, and then encouraging them to then making more masks for them to sell so that they would have an income, because they don't have the means of making the masks. So that was one thing that I did. And then also offering services, because I have skills, and a friend of mine up the road, Shan, we just decided we're going to offer our skills, stitching skills. So drafting patterns for PPE for gowns for the hospital. At the moment, I'm making gowns for Laura and Ginza for the children's unit, because these doctors are seeing patients and they don't actually have protective gear. It's really scary. Their gear has gone lost or it hasn't arrived, and at least they have something that is protection for themselves. So I found this is the time where I want to just give back to the community. I'm in the fortunate position that one of us in our partnership is earning a salary. So I'm free to be able to do this, which is a very privileged position. So to share that privilege. And then again, I am also trying to shoot my first YouTube video, which is quite challenging. I'm going to enlist some help to again put ideas out there. How to use rubbish to create beads. I've been making beads and teaching people how to make beads out of literally things like bread packets, shopping bags, chip packets, anything that you throw away, you can actually turn into a bead and make it beautiful.
Wow. I've got a cupboard full of plastic waste that I've been looking for ideas for things that I can do with it. So I'm very much looking forward to your video.
I'll definitely put it up. I'll put a link up on Facebook once I'm done.
I'll definitely look out for it. So what's your favorite part of what you do?
I think seeing the joy that it brings to others. There's something so special when, Monique and I have discussed this many times, because sometimes you feel quite down. You think, well, I've written all these books and I'm still struggling because we don't get much of an income from books, let's face it. And especially now with YouTube available, people don't even buy books anymore, and your royalties are pretty small as it is. So it's very much a by the way, putting your name out there, but it doesn't do much more. So you start to feel a little disheartened, but then you get letters from people, or you get people coming up to you and saying, you changed my life. I had no idea I could do this, and then I read your book and I followed your instructions, and I cannot believe that I made this, and they're just so excited. And I think that is why I do what I do, because I think if we can't bring joy to others, well, what's our purpose in life?
Now, I'd like to dig just a little deeper, because I know that a lot of people watching make the assumption. I know I've heard people have said to me, Melanie, now that you've published a book, you must be a millionaire. So can we debunk that myth right now?
Absolutely. In fact, Vilsia debunked it for us, the very first book that we put out there. She said to us, look, don't get your hopes up, because you have to remember that, number one, we're in South Africa, and she does a fantastic job by taking all our books to the world stage at the Frankfurt Book Fair and trying to sell the titles on. But you know, the reality is that in South Africa, of the literate people who buy a book, it is such a small percentage of the population. And of that literate percentage that buy a book, the chances that they buy your book are extremely small.
Mm.
So, you know, you might sell 2,000 of an edition. And if you think that of those 2,000, you're earning 6 to 8% royalty on the wholesale price of that book, that doesn't actually put a lot into the bank. It's more about creating your brand, your image, your credibility, especially your street credibility. It's opened so many doors for me. I mean, tomorrow I'm judging a nationwide maths art competition. I don't think I'd probably be in that position had I not been an author of books, because it does give you street cred, definitely. And I'm so grateful to Metz because they have been an amazing support over the years to us as well as to you, I'm sure. So, you know, to have a publisher who is behind you all the way and doesn't give you false hope. It's been great to have that relationship.
And also just to deliver on her promises. She's amazing.
Absolutely.
The books that you put out with Metz Press, I don't know about you, but mine look much better than I ever would have produced on my own.
They are so beautiful. They are so professional, and you know, both of us, I know, are mourning the loss of the incredible photographer that we worked with over the years. I think all the books I did, my last book, Prince Galore, Ivan and I worked on alone because Wilcia had an emergency operation. So we just went ahead because she said, well, you've done 10 already, you know what you're doing. And what an amazing guy. I mean, he just had such an eye. I would set something up and think, wow, this is going to be an amazing photograph. And he would come at it from a completely different angle and I would just be blown away. Wow, you know, just everything looks so good. But yet it's so authentic that it's still, it's not a fake picture. It's just something so amazing. And they are beautiful books. We're very, very proud of our books.
I personally, since he's gone, don't even want to make any more books. It's kind of...
Yeah, I know how you feel.
Blown the wind out of my sails for bookmaking.
Yeah, it was a really special time having him and Wilcia and Lindy and Liesel helping to create something amazing, you know, and the kind of conversations that would go backwards and forwards about, well, what do you think and how does this look and are you happy with that? You know, always bringing you in and consulting, and it was such a wonderful process, a real privilege.
So what was also amazing for me about Ivan is because he took photos of every single SA Fashion Week collection for more than a decade. He's also the photographer who captured my professional catwalk work.
Wow, fantastic! What a legacy!
Yes, so he was the lens that captured both sides of what I was doing, and so the fact that he's gone is.
So had you not met him, had you not done the books at that point, had he already been photographing your work?
So my Fashion Week stuff was 2005, and I published my first book in 2010. And it was only when we worked on contemporary diecraft that I then realized that he'd taken all of the catwalk pictures of my catwalk work.
What a connection.
Yes, and he had an amazing eye that he could capture both the catwalk and images for craft books in such a classy and professional way. He was really an incredible photographer.
He was. And he had such amazing stories. You know, I'm still so sorry that he left us so soon, because Ivan would have written the most incredible memoir of his life eventually. Wow. Yes. I mean, he did the he filmed Survivor South Africa as well. I mean, that's the stories that he told me on our last book shoot. I mean, I would sit with my mouth hanging open listening.
Yes.
Because it was fresh in his mind then, and it was really fascinating to get a look behind the scenes. I love behind the scenes.
Yes. And are you planning any more books now, or do you think you're done?
No, I think I will continue with hoping to get onto YouTube. I think digital is definitely the way forward. The book that we wrote last year, well, the books that we did for the Department of Education, has opened my eyes to the possibilities of my own publications. And being able to digitally illustrate things was a whole new field for me. So I would really like to explore that. And also, just getting older, those books that we wrote 10 books in a matter of 7 years. It was hectic. In some instances, 2 books in a year. It was a massive amount of work. And for me, being in Port Elizabeth, I would have to fly to Cape Town with everything. And talking about photography, when the photographs of a how-to happen, they happen in 10 minutes. So you have to have every stage made. So I would have to trek and sometimes courier and drive down masses and masses and masses of step-by-steps. So for every one article, there might have been 10 things made for the step-by-step process. And it involves a lot of heavy work, particularly if you're doing garden work. A lot of that was shot in Port Elizabeth. But carting stuff, when I was young and fit, I'm now 60, so you kind of get a little bit tired. So I think digital is definitely the way forward for me. It's a lot less stress. Yeah. I don't have that same energy and drive anymore.
Yes. It's also been interesting for me how, as I've gotten older, what I want changes.
Yeah, you start looking for a quiet life, and getting on a plane and flying here and there to do workshops, it's very stressful because you hit the ground running, you've got all this equipment, you present the workshop, which is an adrenaline high, then afterwards you sit with all the mess you've got to pack away and clear up and recycle everything, because I couldn't just throw things away, so it would all have to be packed up and brought home and then washed and cleaned. And it's really exhausting. And when you're doing it times 90 people over 3 days, it's what the drill is. It's a stressful life. And yes, it's a fantastic feeling, but you get to a point where you've had enough.
Have you ever burned yourself out in the process, Angie?
No, I don't think so. I'm very lucky in that I've got lots of people who really care about me, and when they see me starting to go a little bit over the top, they say, hey, calm down, you need a break.
Okay.
So yes, I've always had amazing friends, living at the beach here, phone me up in the morning, come 6 o'clock, we're going to the beach, and just that de-stress of 2 hours walking on the beach, you come home and you've de-stressed. So I've just been lucky to have those kind of abilities, gifts given to me, which not everyone has. When you're stuck in the rat race and you in a car in traffic, I have not had that worry. And I think that's why I have not burnt out. I think if I'd been living in a big city and I'd been sitting in traffic, it would be a very different story.
That's a very interesting reflection. So
to find that time in every day where you say, I'm switching my phone off, I'm pulling the battery out of the front doorbell, and I'm going into my garden. And I'm not available. And it's to be disciplined and do that.
That's very interesting, because a lot of people don't even switch their phones off for 5 minutes a day.
Yeah. No, I must say I've had to learn to do that. My husband's very good at saying, well, have you not had enough time on that thing yet? He's very good about not being on his phone.
Okay.
To the point which drives me crazy, but it's very important to actually switch it off.
Yes. So he's been a great support system throughout your career.
Unbelievable support system. I'm so blessed having such an amazing partner in my life. Yeah.
That's awesome. So where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Probably going back to painting. I'm hoping to get back to painting one of these days. I've been binge watching Portrait Artist of the Year and Landscape Artist of the Year in the UK, which I absolutely love and I find so inspiring, because as a 10, 11 and 12-year-old, that was my thing. I wanted to paint portraits. So I know that I'm heading back towards, the art materials I've been stashing over the years. because I think, you know, it's a far quieter, more meditative process. And the other thing is, I have been painting portraits over the years, but it's always been when someone has passed on, and then I've painted a portrait for their loved ones. And when my dad died in 2007, I know my mum would have liked me to paint my dad, but I think it's just, every time I think about it, I have a canvas waiting. Something just says, I'm not ready to do this yet. And until I paint him, I don't know that I will be able to paint anybody else. And yeah, I went back and did a drawing class with a teacher about 3 years ago, because I thought maybe that will force me to do it, because if I'm paying somebody good money, then I'll actually do it.
Did it work?
And I did do a self-portrait, which was the first thing she insisted on. And then something got in the way. I think, yeah, I was busy with the Quilters Festival, and you know, it was just a time management story, and I just decided I had to give that up for a while, and I haven't gone back to it yet. Okay. But I think hopefully I'll get there, and maybe in 5 years' time I'll be painting my portrait.
Oh, that sounds like a great goal.
Yeah, because that will be 65, and then I do aim to retire, because until then I feel like I've still got a lot to give to the community.
Yes.
And yeah, I would like to still put some skills out there on YouTube.
Yes.
Which won't really be for me.
Yes. I love that at 60 you're still reinventing yourself. I know a lot of people think that at 35 they passed it or something, you know, so it's wonderful.
Oh, gosh.
You're a wonderful example of how you can just keep going.
I met an old lady of 84 who started painting. And, you know, when you start at 84, because she'd been so busy with, you know, being grandparent, etc., and she said suddenly there was time, and she thought, well, what do I want to do for me?
Yes.
And to start at that age and then actually make a success of your painting career, I mean, that gave me so much hope.
Yes.
So I think 65 is actually a bit early for me, but it's going to be super indulgent.
Yeah. And what does retirement look like for you?
I know Peter keeps saying we can't actually afford to retire because neither of us were really earning proper money until 2010. So we actually don't have much behind us, but we've managed to pay off our house and our cars. So hopefully we'll be able to survive. But, you know, we'll always be able to teach. And I think that's the thing. If you are a teacher and there's a need, you will always have work. Doesn't matter what age you are, because if you're able to engage and you're able to put some information out there that people are willing to pay for, then you will have a job. So I don't despair of being able to retire, because it might not feel like retirement. I might do, say, 5 workshops a month, which will enable me to survive and put food on the table.
I love your teaching spirit. It's wonderful. I think that's why we get along well.
Yeah, I think some people are just born teachers. We can't help ourselves. We have to actually show people what to do. You know, some people call it bossy. I try not to be bossy. My kids will probably tell you otherwise.
I love your teaching style. You know, you get information across there, and people are able to use it to do stuff on their own.
I think if you're passionate about something, you want to share it. I think it's as simple as that. You know, if you're really excited by something, why not share it? Why hold it to yourself? What for? You know, what kind of joy would you have out of hoarding something? The whole point of hoarding is to be able to share it with somebody and say, wow, look at this. Wouldn't you like some?
And tell us a bit about your involvement in the quilting world.
Wow. When I first got married in 1983, I decided for my husband then and myself, I would make us a bed quilt. I'd made some patchwork stuff when I was at university in Cape Town. I was on a student bursary, and so I had no pocket money, and my parents couldn't afford to send me there. So I had to earn my own pocket money. So I started making patchwork with a friend, and we were selling it in a little lane in Cavendish, which eventually became a market. And from there, I thought, well, make a patchwork quilt for a wedding gift for someone, which I did when I was 19, I think. And so that was a dream to make my own one. So I actually went and bought a proper log cabin quilt kit through Your Family magazine and followed the instructions letter for letter with my brand new sewing machine, and I made this quilt. And yeah, I suppose from there I was hooked. Okay. And then, going through all the traditional quilting steps, you have to learn the rules before you break the rules. I mean, that I've learned throughout my life. So start off, learn all the rules, and then eventually become, break all the rules and become an art quilter, which is far more fascinating and interesting and enjoyable for me. So yeah, that's my real passion. So I belong to a group started by one of the PE and cocoa quilters, Angie Weisswange. She started a group called Textile Art PE. So that's a group that I belong to at the moment that I'm quite enjoying. And hopefully we'll have, so we had 2 exhibitions planned this year, which of course have had to fall by the way. So they've been postponed. So we'll be working on items for the art galleries to do with textile art particularly. And obviously quilted art. So I've moved away from bed quilting, but having said that, now with lockdown, I decided we needed a quilt for our bed. So I've actually made one. Couldn't believe it, because I've only been able to do very rote stitching, masks, PPE, following a basic quilt pattern. I haven't been able to do anything creative. It's really I suppose, a feeling that there's just too much need to be able to be indulgent. Maybe that's what it is. So trying to sort of just supply needs.
Now, listening to your story, I have to ask, do you ever sleep?
Oh yes, no, sleep's very important. But I confess to being a night owl, but unfortunately Peter is exactly the opposite. So he's awake at 4 in the morning, and I like to go to bed at midnight. So between midnight and 4, I definitely get sleep. And then I usually go back to sleep, and he brings me a wonderful cup of tea at about 7. So I get my 7 hours, which is vital, absolutely vital. If I don't get my sleep, I'm too grumpy to do anything. So sleep is very important.
you just cram whatever you can into a day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
we've been given 2 hands, and we've been given a life, and we've been given, if you've been given what I've been given, I feel so privileged, to have had the life that I've had. And I think just to grab any opportunity to explore and create.
What an inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you for inspiring us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm very lucky to be surrounded by such wonderful human beings. So if anyone wants to find you online, where can they find you?
The best is actually Facebook, Angie Weisswange, and I'm also under my book title, previous surname, Angie Franke, also a German surname. So there's art and about it, Angie Franke, and then there's my website, www.angiefranke.com, and then Angie Weisswange on Facebook. You could inbox me if you wanted to get hold of me. I don't give my cell phone number out because I get too many spam calls. So I only answer my phone if a person is in my phone book contacts. Otherwise, it's just a spam call and I don't answer it, unfortunately. So there's no point giving my phone number out. But yeah, those are the best ways of getting hold of me, or Gmail, angie.weisswange@gmail.com.
Okay, and can you just spell that for everybody?
Oh gosh, yes, it's quite a name. Weisswange.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for spending time with us today. That was a truly inspiring interview.
That was lovely. Thank you very much, Mel. And I'm enjoying all these interviews so much.
Yeah, that's great feedback.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day.
Fascinating seeing what everyone's up to. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.